Happy December, folks. It's time for the latest UK car news. Not the biggest month of car news, so it won't be a massively long video unless I waffle on incoherently for too long. Thanks to everyone that sort of sent messages of support and has followed me on social media, followed my trip over to the US to the LA Auto Show. Some of the footage of that is now out on Men and Motors, but there's still a lot more to come. I went also to the Peterson Museum, which was absolutely awesome, and you must watch a video of that when it comes out, and to Shelby American in Vegas. All good stuff, all coming soon, so make sure you check that out on Men and Motors. For now, we'll get straight to the news. SMMT have said that UK car production's up again, up 31.6% year on year. They're now forecasting for 1 million new car units produced in the UK this year, which we haven't seen since you know what happened. Now, SMMT, as you might know, give us the figures on UK car sales, but it's interesting to see what's going on in Europe. I always like to have a little look and just see how things differ from over here. The best-selling car in Europe, top 10 best-selling cars in Europe, according to AutoCar here, Tesla Model Y, 209,500 sales so far. Number 2, Dacia Sandero. Number 3, VW T-Roc. 4, Peugeot 208. 5, Renault Clio. 6, Vauxhall Corsa or Opel Corsa. 7 is the Golf. Golf's still doing well over there. 150,000 sales, pretty much bang on what it was doing last year. Yaris Cross, 148,000 sales. That's a brilliant little car, by the way. A Bath 500 or Fiat 500, they've combined those two, 144,000. And number 10 is the Dacia Duster. The common theme there seems to be that the Europeans favour smaller cars than us. You can see why driving around some European cities, but perhaps it's something we should all be looking at a bit more. We don't all need massive SUVs all the time, do we? Again from AutoCar, crackdown on websites selling devices for keyless car thefts. There's loads of this in the news at the moment, loads of it being sensationalised for a change as well. This is called Relay Tech. It's being sold blatantly online, and it helps people to basically clone the key for your car. Fairly quick, fairly simple. Evidently costs about 100 quid for the gear, and you can essentially give yourself a key for a car and drive off in it. Loads and loads in the news about Range Rovers going walkies using this method at the moment. Evidently they're particularly easy to exploit and obviously particularly valuable. People are often sort of say with things like this, why do people steal cars these days? Because surely it's difficult to sell them on. They'll do things like cloning, so they'll use number plates from a different car, but also these things are worth a fortune in parts. And if you've got something like a Range Rover, got 70 odd ECUs to start with, the cats, headlights, people are chopping these things up sometimes and just parting them out, and there's big money to be made in that. Car thefts are actually up 25% this year. Money's tight generally in the economy, and some people feel that thieving is a perfectly good way of making that money. Car parts prices are still ridiculously high, so people are happy to save a few quid buying something on eBay or Marketplace or something like that. So to try and combat this, the King's Speech on the 7th of November outlined plans to bring in a law that will make it illegal to produce, modify, supply, import or possess such devices with a penalty of up to 5 years in jail. They are still widely available for sale right now, by the way. So hopefully that comes in very, very quickly. In the meantime, a really good thing for you to have and a really good Christmas present for people is a Faraday box. Basically a little box that you drop your car keys into and it stops the signal from escaping. One of the ways they do this is someone stands by your front door. Most people hang their keys up by their front door somewhere. They can clone the key from there, and then someone else is standing by the car and the job is done. So a little Faraday box, quite a cheap thing, nice little Christmas gift for someone. I'll put a link in the video description to one on Amazon. And if you buy it, I think I'll earn about 14p. So thanks. Some news from Hyundai Group. They're going to merge Hyundai and Genesis brands together. From a consumer point of view, you shouldn't notice any difference. Everything will remain kind of exactly as it is. I think really it's a backroom change. So instead of having 2 lots of staff for X, Y, and Z, they'll go down to 1. I know a couple of really good people at Genesis and some really good people at Hyundai. So really hope that their jobs are safe and that everything carries on as it has on that side of things, because not all the car companies are so easy to deal with. A lot are, but some really aren't. but it's always a pleasure dealing with any of those guys. So yeah, wish them all the best. Genesis, by the way, makes some absolutely phenomenal cars that are often overlooked. And if you ever get the chance to have a poke around in sometimes they do little pop-up things in shopping centres where they'll have a couple of cars in and you can stick your nose in and have a look around. You really should, because you'll be really surprised by what you find. Now, this seems like good news. The UK-built electric Nissan Juke aims to be the same price as the petrol model. Unfortunately, it looks like it's not due until 2027, so you might have a little bit of a wait. Expecting to start around about 21 grand for this. There is a concept here that they say previews what it's going to look like. It's not going to look anything like that, folks. I think we can safely say. Obviously, one of the big reasons for not getting into a new EV has been the price of them. And we've seen some of the depreciation that's happened, obviously stimulated by company car drivers. Huge tax breaks for getting into an electric car as your company car instead of a petrol or diesel. Obviously, it meant loads of people get into company cars. And then at the end of the 2 or 3 years, the company car goes back and there's a car in the used market that doesn't particularly have a buyer. So that's part of the reason we're seeing this huge depreciation at the moment. I think the other part of the reason is that manufacturers have been taking the Michael with some of the pricing. So it's really good to see Nissan at least trying to put out their EV for the same price as their petrol car. And let's hope other manufacturers take note and follow suit. Why the UK could be back in the frame for a Tesla Gigafactory. So Elon Musk has said he still wants another Gigafactory. If you remember, last time the UK lost out to Germany for the European Gigafactory for Tesla. But he said he wants another one, and he will be picking a new location for one towards the end of 2023. Well, it's towards the end of 2023 at the moment. There does seem to have been a bit of a bromance going on between Rishi Sunak and Elon Musk recently. So maybe we will get one here. This is great news if we do. It means more jobs, and it means that more companies will start manufacturing cars in the UK again. You know, we used to be a powerhouse of car manufacturing, and things have scaled back considerably over the years. So this can only be a good thing if it happens. Speaking of Tesla, the Cybertruck is finally being delivered to US customers. 340 miles of range, 845 brake horsepower, 0-60 in 2 point something. There was a crazy presentation and video package from Elon Musk a couple of days ago where they fired a machine gun into the side of the car, proving that it's bulletproof. And also a drag race with a Porsche 911 where the Cybertruck won, and then you see the full reveal and it's actually towing another 911 while it won the drag race. So all good stuff, all a little bit bonkers as you might expect. At the moment there are 2 versions, a dual motor version and a 3 motor version. The 3 motor one's about $100,000, so it's not for the faint hearted. The dual motor comes out around about £63,000, about $80,000, something like that. Now, as well as being able to stop 9mm bullets, it can charge at a rate of 1 megawatt, which is the same as a Tesla Semi. That's incredible. You know, that's like 4 times as fast as my Model Y can charge. It's also got a towing capacity of 5 tons, which is, you know, one of the issues quite often with electric vehicles is they're not that great at towing. This can do the job. The production version is actually a fair bit smaller than the prototype, so it's not quite such a huge thing as we were expecting. Still an absolutely bizarre, crazy looking thing, and who knows if we'll ever see them over here. I guess we won't. BMW have trademarked iM3, and that sort of suggests that that will be the name for their new M3 electric replacement. This is a crazy thing, by the way. It's going to be a quad motor super saloon, and it's going to have 1,341 brake horsepower. Some of these numbers are getting a bit daft, aren't they? 1,341 brake horsepower. That seems like 1,000 more than you need. Having said that, I'd love to have a go. No more information on that at the moment. Just really a bit of speculation. New Polestar 3 sports SUV brings 510 horsepower and 379 mile range. Unfortunately, it's from 80 grand for one of these. Now, I'll tell you a bit more about this car in a minute, but if you want one of these, and a lot of people will because it ticks quite a few boxes, this car, please consider leasing it and not buying it, because your 80 grand is going to turn into 40 grand very, very quickly. That's my prediction anyway, so do the numbers yourself, folks. But if you want something like this, do consider leasing new and do consider buying used. 510 horsepower, twin motor, 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds, 379 miles of range, 250 kilowatt charging capability. It certainly looks like a car that's going to have a number of suitors, particularly I would say probably company car drivers, but that price tag is huge. And there's a lot more competition around the 40-50 grand mark now than there used to be. And 80, seems hopeful. So we'll have to wait and see how it goes. It may be that they've decided they won't sell millions of them, but they'll make lots of money on each one. Or it may just be they've put so much into R&D, they're trying to get, everything they can back out of it. It says here as well that Polestar are currently doing lots of R&D into vehicle-to-grid solutions, so be interesting to see what they have up their sleeves there. Onto AutoExpress. The HS2 billions are going to be poured into potholes as new road repair fund announced. The government's evidently reallocated £8.3 billion that was going to be spent on HS2 into repairing our roads and sorting out potholes. However, if you read into this story a little bit deeper, the local highway authority is going to get 150 million this year and 150 million next year, and the rest of the money is going to be allocated to 2034. By that time, there'll probably have been at least 3 different governments. So whether the rest of that money ever does go into the roads, it seems unlikely at best, does it not? But if money gets spent on the roads in the short term, that can only be a good thing. I just hope they do a good job of it, because they've done some roads around where I live recently, and they've literally come along, rough laid asphalt over the existing road without doing any kind of anything to the substructure by the looks of it. And it's just, as people are driving on it, it's literally all coming away. They haven't even rolled it after it's been done. 1 or 2 roads they did roll afterwards, and they look mint. They look great. But the stuff they haven't was breaking up within a week of it being laid. And I just hope that's not the new plan for how everything's going to be done, because it doesn't work. The new Lucid Gravity electric SUV lands on Earth. I was at the launch event for this at the LA Auto Show. It was an absolute bun fight. I didn't get any decent footage of it. I tried to film around the car, and it was like trying to film in a rugby scrum. But you will still see some of that, I guess, on Men and Motors. Now, this is a 7-seat SUV, and Lucid say it can go up to 440 miles of range on a single charge. And thanks to 350 kilowatt charging capability, it can do 200 miles of range in 15 minutes, which is mightily impressive. It's also got a really good sized boot, a massive frunk. In fact, with all the seats down, it's got over 3,100 litres of space if you just leave the driver and passenger seat in place. This is the interior, which is very cool. They've gone for that sort of Hyundai type, or almost like the double screen effect that you get in a lot of these new cars now, but it's just a single screen, or certainly looks like a single screen. And then you've got the iPad, the obligatory iPad type screen beneath it. But it works really well. It really looks nice in the flesh. The materials feel good. Obviously, Lucid was started by a couple of senior execs from Tesla, and they went about making a very premium rival to Tesla. Prices on these are going to start around $80,000 or £65,000 roughly. So really interesting to be there for the launch. Whether we'll ever get one of these in the UK remains to be seen, but I'm sure they'll come over to Europe at some point, and I think they'll do reasonably well. The UK's consumer watchdog will get new powers to demand price and profit information from road fuel retailers that will put the spotlight on future attempts to hike prices unfairly. So this is the Competition and Markets Authority. In future, when they ask retailers for this information, they will have to be provided with it. According to a government statement, any fuel retailer that refuses to come clean on their fuel prices and margins once the amendments become law could face a fixed fine up to 1% of global turnover. Global turnover. So imagine BP or Shell say, no, we're not going to give you our numbers. 1% of their global turnover could be the fine, or an ongoing fine of up to 5% of daily turnover. CMA have already said a few months this year prices rose as wholesale prices rose, but then as wholesale prices dropped, retail prices didn't. And it's this kind of thing that they want to get on top of Let's not also forget that we pay a ridiculous amount per litre to the government in terms of taxes and duties. The Polestar 5's been unveiled at an event in LA. You're looking at some pictures of it here. This is going to be really the sort of Tesla Model S Porsche Taycan rival. 870 something horsepower in this, 900 newton meters of torque, and 800 volt charging technology. That means you'll get 100 miles of range into the car in just 5 minutes. It's going to be launched in 2025. Obviously, no word on pricing yet, or indeed if we'll even see it in the UK. But we know it's not going to be cheap, don't we? Sticking with Polestar, roughly, at the moment, Geely, who owns Polestar, they own Volvo, they own Lotus, they own lots of electric car companies. They've signed a deal with electric car and battery manufacturer NIO to basically team up with things like battery swapping functionality and to align their battery standards. I think there's going to be a lot more of this going on in the market because everyone's developing their own batteries. Everyone's got slightly different standards and architectures. I think more companies will see huge value in joining forces on these kind of things. What that would mean in practice, we have seen one of these before, is that you basically drive your car into a little station. A robot essentially takes the battery out of your car, puts another one in, and off you drive. Lots of people will be saying, but what about if the battery they give you has been abused? Well, you're always going to be having a different battery. I guess that could get to the point where you end up leasing your battery. I know people have done that before. We've been there and seen that before. Maybe you subscribe to your battery. Car companies love a subscription model now. So how battery swapping looks to the consumer at the end of the day sort of remains to be seen. Probably more questions than answers on that at the moment. Folks, we've got another electric car story here, and I can already sort of see the comments coming of you're only doing electric car news. I'm not. That's just all the news there is. Obviously, a lot of companies are scaling down or stopping production of internal combustion engine vehicles. So we're going to see considerably less news on that kind of stuff in future and considerably more electric car stuff, I assume. I just give you the news, all right? I'm not being selective. Lotus to rival Tesla superchargers with its own ultra-rapid EV charging network. The British sports car manufacturer will start rolling out 450 kilowatt rapid chargers in Europe next summer. This is interesting. The 450 kilowatt territory is one that really only Tesla have stepped into so far, and it's still early days for them. It's interesting to see it coming from Lotus because given the volume that Lotus sell cars in, you're not going to expect them to make these sort of Lotus specific chargers. So like you can only charge a Lotus at one of these. So I guess that will be opened up to everyone. No help for electric car buyers in the autumn budget statement. Chancellor resists calls from the industry to fund EV purchase grants or reduce VAT on public charging. The VAT on public charging is the one I'd like to see them sort out. I don't know really why they need to stimulate the purchase of EVs. That's really down to the manufacturers to get their pricing right. You can now buy EVs for almost any budget. I've been looking this morning, and you can get yourself a used electric car with over 100 miles of range for about $3.5 grand. So they're not just for the rich anymore. Obviously, they're not going to suit everyone's lifestyle. Obviously, not everyone can charge them from home. So I think reducing VAT on public charging will do more for the economy and more for the likes of you and I than saying you can have $2 grand off a new one, because not that many people can afford to buy a new one. And if they can, they probably don't need the $2 grand. Where the money off the charging seems to make a lot more sense for normal folks. That's it for this one, folks. Thank you very much for watching. Not packed with news. As I said, it's not the right time of year for it, really. But I've tried to bring you what are sort of, in my eyes, the biggest stories of the last few weeks. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and please leave a comment. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll catch you on the next one.